Okay, good evening. Good, well, I guess slightly later evening, and good morning, boys and girls. So today we're going to actually talk about something that was brought up on yesterday's stream. Uh, and this is with apology to the public internet. Uh, because yesterday's stream isn't actually publicized for a very good reason that I'm not going to get into. Um, yeah, so today we're going to talk about something that sort of left over and spawned a whole bunch of discussions from yesterday, and that is the idea of human fulfillment, of what is it that we are as, you know, dudes and dudettes that um, that make us, that help us find ourselves, right? Like, what is it about us that is unique? What is it about us that is interesting? And what is it about us that can actually, how do you say? What is it about us that we should value? Right? I think that's a rather interesting topic, and I think it's rather fun to talk about it. So let us. There we go. So let's really get started. At the very basic of everything, at least in my mind, at the very basic of everything is the human brain. There's like you can argue all the philosophy you want, you can argue all the culture you want, you can argue upbringing, anything like that. None of that, none of that would be possible without the human brain, right? And so that's actually saying sense of self. And so, what is the brain? Well, the brain, I'm not going to get into the biology of it, obviously, because that would actually not serve much purpose. Oops, excuse that for a moment. Actually, that would serve no purpose at all, right? Exactly. Nobody would know what I was talking about, and nobody would be interested in what I was talking about. But what I will talk about is sort of the brain holistically, what it is, right? And I mean, we all know, we have a general idea. The brain stores our memories. The brain is what controls our movements, and the brain is the central control center for whom we are as a person. And if we lose our brain, obviously we'll lose our ability to think and to exist. Does that I mean, that shouldn't come as a surprise. And oh, you're not interested anyway. Well, I mean, you're free. You're always free to leave, bro. I keep saying that. You're always free to leave. uh, anyway, the peanut gallery aside, the brain is sort of very important because it is the center of our sense of self. Regardless of what anyone can say, will try to say differently. Without the brain, we don't have a sense of self. And so, what is, like, what are we? What is our sense of self? To me, the answer is actually quite easy. As interesting as it is, like, to me, the answer is um not quite so big. So let's go down to like 20. Says 20. An accumulation of experiences that mold and respond to, not mold like that, mold and respond to new experiences. And that's a slightly loaded sentence. So let's talk about what that is, right? So say a newborn brain. Just take this out. Oops. No. No. There we go. No, like that. There we go. Okay. So not V. I really need to use a different kind of. Yes, I really do. But it's okay. It's okay. We got this. It's a new brain starts with only instincts and learns to interact from there. The corollary to that is does not mean every brain reacts the same to the same stimulus, right? So that's very important. The way a brain has reacted in the past determines the way it reacts in the future. So this is I appreciate that this sounds very vague and very very philosophical almost. But just hold on for a second. Just bear with me. So essentially what I am saying in this is the following, is that as the brain sort of is stimulated, let's put an arrow on this and triangle like this. Let's set that to like 300%. We have a certain amount of stimulus, right? That comes and hits the brain and then bounces off. It doesn't matter where it goes, it doesn't matter what it does, but that stimulus has hit the brain. Now, what can this stimulus be? Let's talk about that. Right? It's actually incredibly simple what the stimulus can be. It can be things like it can be things like nourishment. It can be things like color. It could be things like voice. Actually, that's a very good one. Physical contact. It could be things like teachings. All of these things are stimulus, and all of these things will interact with the brain and change the brain, right? And so what goes on then? Well, inside the brain, yeah, let's do that. It'll be fine. Inside the brain, I'm going to put this. There we go. No, not like that. Smooth that out. Okay, excellent. So because of that, inside the brain, because of all of these stimuluses, inside the brain things will change. No, let's put it like this. Yeah. Right, so this really all it does is symbolize that the brain itself will change because of external stimulus, and then out of that we have, okay, maybe not there. From within here, let's go here, and then let's go here. Let's say that this is now an action, right? And I think everyone can appreciate, at least in some way, that the action comes from the brain that is changing. And let's just do this action. Oops, I wish I could rebind the caps lock key, because it's literally the most useless key. But it's there for legacy reasons, and nobody can really tell it to go away. So, I mean, Google tried. Instead, I put a search key in there, which isn't really that much better for me. So, it'd be easier if they would just let me rebind. But anyway, that's not the point. And the point that we're laboriously trying to get to is that, let me just say, interactions, senses, thoughts, obsessions. What else can we have? Let's put in something like anger, right? Like that's the idea. Defense. This obsessions. Excuse me. So, actually, let me just etc. There we go. etc thought. Just so nobody tries to say, oh, but Muses, you didn't specify everything. That's right, I didn't specify anything. What are you gonna do about it? So let's say like this looks like this. It comes out in this nice little circle, and then it goes in there. There we go. So because of the changing brain, because of the stimulus, actually let's put the stimulus like in here. Excuse me. Oh, that's okay. No worries. So outside stimulus comes, does little bits of change. Let's add the changes. And this will be actions, and then changes. So interestingly enough, we can say changes as like recognizing the hand that feeds you, right? And that's not, obviously that's not just humans. Animals do that as well. If you feed something often enough, it'll understand that you're trying to feed it. But this very much is something that babies do, right? So if we link this up, nourishment means recognizing the hand that feeds you, and perhaps that means that you're interacting with that person a little bit more because you like being fed. I think that's rather fair, right? And so recognizing the hand that feeds you, let's say it changes color, understanding day-night cycle, right? So this is, again, we're talking about a baby. A baby looks at the color, sees, oh look, it's dark outside, it's time for me to sleep. And so the circadian rhythm is something that is built up with right? H, got an H in there. There we go. Voice again goes into, you know, like recognizing your mother, physical contact, teachings. And so teachings is very important, right? Teachings leads to changes, ethical understanding, right? So these things change all the time. Absolutely, right? So let's say let's do this. Oh, what? Oh, excuse me. I got a new keyboard today. Remember I talked about my keyboard before? Yeah, I got a new keyboard today. It's fine. Let's say physical contact itself is 3. Teaching is 4. Let's say voice is actually 3. My bad. 4, 5. So, you know, like with babies, they'll do stuff from like 1, 3, 4, right? Circadian rhythm, that would be stuff like 2, voice, physical contact, ethical understanding, you know, that'll be stuff like physical contact, teachings, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, right? So these things, these stimuli have done these changes within the brain, which will themselves then have, you know, interactions, right? So, you know, like, oh, maybe we should let's list this. Oh, we should have done it as a list. Yes, good point. Well, too late now. No, it's not too late. We'll change that in a second. Give me 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Aren't you glad that I'm teaching you how to count? Let's just be very, very firm about this. You're welcome. Well, no, you are welcome. I'm teaching you to count. Not only am I teaching you to count, I'm teaching you to understand yourself better. Ethical understanding. And so ethical understanding can then lead to stuff like anger, right? 100%. You bet. Right? Obsessions can come from understanding. Like even recognizing the hand. Okay, maybe we should do a few more. Let's see. D. Changes. Let's see. Physical desires. Let's say addiction. And this could be nourishment, right? This could be physical contact in terms of physical addiction. C. Not C. What did I just say? C. Changes that can happen. Ethics. Blah 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 blah. Willpower change. Willpower. And that could come from, like physical contact. That could come from basically everything. 1 to 5. Let's just do that. 1 to 5 x2. Right? And so increased interactions can come because if you're a baby and you have the you suddenly recognize your mother, then why wouldn't you want to interact with her, right? You could have blah 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 blah. This kind of stuff. Like if you're ethical understand, yes. So for example, if your ethics changes, then of course you're going to interact with other kinds of people, or you're going to interact with the same kinds of people by yourself, right? Or no, you're going to interact with the same kind of people in this new way. That's what I meant to say. Right, and all of this I think is quite self-explanatory. I don't need to go too much into this, but the point is that the brain slowly builds this up over our entire lifetime. Brain builds up our sense of self over the entire lifetime. Every experience contributes to the brain, creating new pathways and new structure, with which the brain then uses to interpret future events. And one of the examples that I'm shying away from giving, but I think I should, is this example of PTSD. Let me just center this. Is this example of PTSD, and we will talk about that. Give me 1 second just to line things up. Excellent. So let me line it up here. PTSD, right? So post-traumatic stress disorder. Traumatic stress dramatically changes neurological response to a stimulus. And this is particularly interesting, right? Like we have, I'm sure everyone knows, you know, on a at least an academic level what PTSD is. But on the biochemical level, it is, there are, we do see changes, and we see that certain receptors that would or certain neurochemical pathways that would be, you know, normal in a normal person are either hyperstimulated in PTSD or respond sluggishly in PTSD. And so there is physical change in the brain, and this is sort of the most extreme version of stimulus driving change inside the brain, right? So that's I think it's fair to say that that's, shall we say, the fundamental outlook or overview of what this can be. And so let's talk a little bit about what is the sense of self, shall we? Here, this should actually be white. There we go. Then we're going to move this one this way. Excellent. Excellent work. Slide 2. So let's talk. Oh, isn't this supposed to be a layer? Excuse me. There we go. Okay. So slide 2. Yeah, one second. So on a bigger level, then what we mean when we say sense of self, right? Let me copy this over as well, because I think this will help if we just keep it. Oops. If we just keep it consistent. Yeah. So what is our sense of self, right? So our sense of self is, I would argue, expressed here. Let me just add this. Sense of self expressed here. Obviously, we don't want it that big, but that's fine. Yes, we can deal with that. Right, so the sense of self is expressed here. It is expressed at the output of the brain. And interestingly enough, the output of the brain, the vast majority of the output of the brain is within muscle control. And this might seem like a tangent, but it does link back to it. Let me write it down. So I'm sure we've all had these times when we were anxious, or we were not really understanding what was going on, and that has led to, you know, like this physical expression of anxiety where, you know, perhaps we weren't able to sit down properly, or we weren't able to stop thinking about something, or to stop looking at something, checking phones, etc., right? Anxiety is an expression of the sense of self, right? And it, in some ways, it is seeking stimulants to validate. Is that how? Yeah, validate or oops, or oh, okay, that's fine. Seeking stimulus to validate or to how do I explain that? To support? No, because that's just validate. Let's just go with to validate certain ideas, right? So it doesn't matter what it is. It's if you don't know what's or to validate, yeah. So like say a deal is trying to be done, and it's a big deal, and it has a lot of there's a lot of writing on it, because either you're making a lot of money, or there's prestige, whatever. But in the end of the day, this kind of anxiety is often expressed on the physical level, because that is where most of the output of the brain is. Oops. Okay. So essentially, it's just we're talking about anxiety. There's that. What does this have to do with the sense of self? It's a metaphor. No. No. Oh, 1 second. Sense of self. There we go. Sense of self. And so the reason why I'm putting anxiety here is obviously for a very good reason, and it's because the sponsor for tonight's broadcast has talked about anxiety for a while now, and it's very kind of him to actually to offer to pay me to talk about this, but I'm obviously not gonna take his money. Not for this, right? So but that's why I just want to highlight that we are talking about anxiety for a very good reason, because anxiety stems from our inability to understand our sense of self, right? So the sense of self, we should take a step back and look at it from the big scale, right? Again, it is a culmination of all past experiences. It monitors incoming experiences and modulates a response to incoming experiences. Is it necessarily reactionary? Sorry, let me actually just type this down. It isn't necessarily reactionary / instinctual. Logic can definitely be modulated by earlier stimulus, and therefore affect outcome, right? Like I think it's very, very easy for us to see this, that because we have this sense that like remember we talked about it before, right? Like our brain, oops, why am I on Z? No, there we go. We talked about it before. Essentially, the brain responds to all of these changes, and then outputs whatever it thinks would be the best, right? So our sense of self is very much like, even our logic isn't 100% logical. It's impossible for our logic to be 100% logical, because, well, A, we're not computers, but more importantly, the whole concept of logic itself is unique to the person. Not only because it is not only because we grow up in different, everyone grew up in a different set of environments, but also because everyone's like, I don't want to say that there is no biochemical difference, right? Like if we do a twin study, I'm of the opinion that twins are different the moment they're we're not talking about fraternal twins, we're talking about identical twins. They're different the moment that their very first cell split, on that very first cell split, because they will be affected by subtly different environments, and that's not to say that they'll react completely differently, but obviously from that very first layer of cell division they will be completely independent. That's not to say, of course, that they don't understand each other well, or blah blah, or can't imagine themselves, in each other's shoes. Obviously they're much better at it than total strangers, but that doesn't mean that they're the same. Let me just say, so when past experiences are unable to explain or modulate or control thoughts about a particular issue that leads to anxiety, right? And I think this is self-explanatory. That was the whole point of this particular slide. It's to say that, anxiety is not something that someone else injects upon us. It is more a factor of ourselves, a factor of our history, a factor of what we've learned in the past, a factor of the people that we've met, of the games we've played, the douchebags that we listen to on stream. Right? So that's the idea, that all of this is related, because it has to be related, right? So let's lock this down. Let's lock this down. This is now slide 3. Reducing anxiety. So let's move this up here, or no, let's move this here. Yeah. Anxiety is not a bad thing, and that is something I do want to highlight, because anxiety isn't a bad thing. It just happens that we experience it, I think, a little bit more in our current society, simply because we have a lot more stimulus and a lot more varied stimulus, and that very much leads to extra anxiety, right? So let's say current society has many things. No, has an overwhelming amount of information. All of this can lead to anxiety due to sensory overload. And for my friend who will probably claim that he used to not be anxious, but he's now anxious, and that Does that count as proof that this is wrong? Of course it doesn't, because the brain has changed, right? Like, remember, like, just because you've changed. Oh, I need to put this in here. Just because you changed doesn't mean you were a different person. Okay. Let me just bear with me for a second. Let's do that size 30. Let's do that. Let's do that. And oops. Let's put this here. Right? Right. Just because you changed doesn't mean you're a different person. You're still the same person. The only people that do not change are people who are dead. Like, there is no way around that. We will change because we are always stimulated. Right? Like, even if you were asleep, you're stimulated. You're stimulated by the heat around you. You're stimulated by the feeling of your bedding, and all of this could very well be completely irrelevant. But what if suddenly tomorrow I say, oh, every night you go to sleep 2 degrees higher than normal? Obviously, that's going to change the way that you sleep, and the way that you sleep is itself a stimulus, right? Is itself a stimulus, and that'll change how you deal with a myriad of things. Let's do 80s here, right? I think that's fair to say. If anyone disagrees, you're welcome to. You'd be wrong. Well, no, you just be wrong. That's it. And so anxiety is due to sensory overload. So what do we do? Let me make this smaller. So they put that up there. Yes. Anxiety is not a bad thing. What do we do? Well, 2 things, right? Like, let me just type it. If anxiety is due to sensory overload, underloaded, right? And that sounds easy. Turn off SNS, right? Stop reading the news, right? Like, stop talking to people that annoy you. XML. Right? But this is bad. We're going to have nothing on this. This is bad. This is bad for quite a few reasons. And that's because you're by underloading or taking away load, you're becoming stuck. You're becoming stuck in who you are. You're becoming stuck in your own head, right? So let me just type that up real quick. Underloading, stuck in your own. And that's terrible. That's actually, to me, that's worse. Let me write that down. To me, this is worse than anxiety. Oops. There we go. And so what can you do about it? Well, luckily, you can learn. Learn. Use new stimulus to change your brain so that what was making you anxious before no longer does. And I appreciate that sounds easy. I appreciate that sounds like, oh, why don't you just go make $1 million? But we will get into the details. Because what you learn is most important. What you choose to learn is most important. Do not randomly read websites, right? Like one of the modern tragedies, greatest modern tragedies, is the fact that people have the ability to educate themselves wrongly. Instead, start with ground truths. And yeah, I will talk about this. I will talk about this particular sentence because it is important. Let me add a corollary to that. If you do not know the subject, you cannot learn it because you do not know if the teacher is right? And I hope that makes sense, right? Like if you don't know advanced physics, then any quack that quacks kind of interestingly and that sounds like advanced physics can teach you about advanced physics. And that's literally the worst thing that can happen, right? Because if you don't understand a subject, of course it's important to find a teacher, but you have to understand enough of the surrounding. Let me put that in. Know enough about the surrounding topics to see if your teacher is a fraud. And start with ground truth. And what are these ground truths? Mathematics. I'm sorry, that's just it, right? Like the question was, how will mathematics help me learn about whose politics is right? It will. It will, because it will allow you to see who's pulling numbers out of their ass. Right? In fact, I'll put that in. Proper understanding of numbers means that you can see through bad politician numbers, right? And that's kind of important, isn't it? Right? Like to reduce anxiety, we learn. I mean, I did this was a bit of a long walk, yes. But I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Slide 1, stimulus, right? It makes sense that if you want to understand, how the brain works, or understand your own brain, You need to know how your own brain responds to stimuli. But how many of us really understand how our brain responds to stimuli? No, no, I don't mean sticking electrodes into the brain. Obviously, come on, work with me here, right? Obviously, that's not what I mean. What I mean is how your brain responds. Ooh, excuse me. One quick second. How your brain responds is determined by how you fed it, right? Like, and it's difficult. It's difficult to feed it properly in this. Let me move this. Let me move this up there. Yeah. And I'll move this here so we can start another one of these. Learn. It is difficult to learn in modern society. And this is because every fraud with an accountant and a lawyer can create legitimate looking documents. The things. We'll just stick with things. And that's what makes it tragic, right? Like, that's at least to me, that's what makes it tragic. Again, we talked about it here. One of the greatest modern tragedies is that, you know, people have the, like, so many people educate themselves wrongly. Like, it is the reason why conspiracy theories are you used to, okay, let me put it this way. In the olden days, you needed to try really hard to educate yourself wrongly because you needed the resources to buy all the wrong information. Right? Does that kind of make sense? Like, like, you now we have the internet, and that makes information so readily available. In the past, we didn't have the internet, and so if you wanted to learn about things that were wrong, you had to find them first, right? Like, it took a lot more determination to be wrong. It took a lot more dedication and determination to be wrong on purpose, right? Like, I think that makes sense, at least to everyone. And so what was my original point? Yes, that's a good question. Well, obviously, you know, like, don't go to random websites, don't listen to random YouTube videos. In fact, don't even, okay, I would see, I wouldn't blame anyone for not listening to me on this, because it's exactly what I'm preaching, right? It's exactly what I'm preaching, that you shouldn't listen to a random douchebag. Except let me put that in. Why listen to you then, users? Because you know me, right? Like, because you have context on my knowledge, and because I start from first. No, I don't want to say that. Because you know me, because you have context of my knowledge. Of my knowledge. And well, I mean, I was gonna say because you paid me, but no, that doesn't work at all most of the time. Uh, because you know me, because you have context on my knowledge, and I guess because I don't want to say that I gain nothing from helping you, because obviously well, it comes with the paying thing, but obviously I'm not gonna accept your money. Um, it's I don't just want to say because it makes sense, but because everything I say I can prove. With proof back to first principles, and whether that is mathematics, biology, like theology, not just right. So the idea is, if you want to listen to what I say about, in terms of learning, in terms of trying to find where to start learning, I can certainly give you ideas. I personally, I didn't want to start a fourth slide. Let's move this here. And let's yes, we're almost done. Just give me a moment. Give me a moment, okay? Just yeah, you don't. I mean, you really don't have to listen to me. I am doing this because you asked me to, but that doesn't mean you have to listen to me. Like, absolutely not. So let's put this here. Why listen to you, muses? Because blah blah blah. Okay, so let's say minimalist muses suggested news, and these are partly the information where I get most of my news from, and it'll look very weird. Bloomberg, The Economist. I do have a subscription to FT. South China Morning Post. Well, see, that's the thing, right? Like, yes, you'll miss some local news. Yes, you'll miss the smaller mass shootings. You'll miss, like the but we cannot mourn everything, every tragedy in this world. I wish we could. I genuinely wish that we could, but we cannot mourn every single tragedy. So if we want to understand society, we have to understand it on a bigger scale. And the biggest scale where we can understand society is in the money markets. There is no way around that, right? Because money is where everything is, and therefore the people who deal with money are the people who have to be the best informed on the grand scale of things, right? And so that's why Bloomberg and the FT is there. Economist is just purely for nostalgia's reasons. I grew up reading The Economist. The first magazine I ever opened in my life was The Economist, which I mean, that tells you something, right? The first magazine Muses opened, in his life. Let's move it. Yeah. I mean, that really does tell you everything you need to know about me. So Bloomberg, Economist, FT, South China Morning Post, NHK.co.jp is well, I mean, NHK is interesting, right? But it's like, it's desperately trying to remain neutral while having, its own fundamental bias, but that's I wouldn't put it there. Can't spell. I think each for its bias is important. That's not how you spell recognize. There you go. Yeah, so this is my suggested news. Let's go to Muse's suggested, what was it? Fundamental ground truths. Yes, we're almost done. I'm not going to get into the exercises today, sorry. Well, because what time is it? It's almost midnight for me. Holy crap. So no, I'm not gonna get into that. No. Ground truths. Calculus. You need calculus. Foundational for all engineering. And then you're gonna need some engineering. Civil, electrical, right? Like just understanding how a circuit works doesn't help you in the slightest, but understanding how a bridge gets built and the supply chain, civil supply chain. There we go. What other kind of ground truths? We're talking biology, human biology. So we're talking evolutionary, neurobiology, because knowing where each part of the brain and what it does can really tell you a lot about what is going on in your mind, right? What else? Physiology, human, for helping you exercise. Do I know of? Yeah, absolutely. I know. And cynicism. Sociology, right? Like understanding how society works, understanding how people work, why people lie, why people compensate, why people no, I think that's good. Page up, come on. Excuse me, hello. There we go. Okay. Oh, what happened? Oh, we're okay. Right, so this is really what I'm suggesting. Essentially, if you want to reduce anxiety, uh, fundamental ground truths, right? You don't have to be an expert in all of this. You just need to know that numbers are numbers and that you can use those numbers to do things, right? And civil engineering will give a fantastic overview of the scale of numbers, of like how much money goes into building a building, but also how much money goes and how much energy goes into building a building, and that gives you a whole bunch of like really insightful things for green future. There we go. Right? Like that's really all there is to it. Yeah. I can't believe I just spent an hour talking about this. Oopsie daisy. Right, well, yeah, let's wrap it up for today because I got places to be. Bed. Well, no, I'm going. I'm actually going to practice drawing sketches. Yeah, for fun. Because I'm crazy. No. No, I just got new software that works really well with my drawing tablet, and like invalidates like half my purchases in the past year. That's just my life. Yeah. Okay. Does this to our sponsor? Does this make a little bit of sense? Excellent. I'm glad. Right? Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly that. It's this idea that we have to accept that like things are not like that our sense of self is not static. It must by definition be changing all the time. And so therefore anxiety is killer. It really is. Yeah. Cool. All right. No, I'm not, and also I'm not going to repeat that on stream. Thank you very much. So let's wrap it up then. In conclusion, then, thank you all very very much for watching. Please download Firefox. Please don't do Chrome because Chrome is one crap piece of software. It's a monopoly. Don't do it. Well, it genuinely is pretty crap. Like it's bloated. It's fractally bloated. It doesn't make any sense. Like Chrome had a remote desktop at one point. I don't know if that's still a thing. But yeah, like you don't need it. Anyway, we're done for today. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Bye. No, bye.